Goodhart is a former founder member of the Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee. He has, as we all know, he has a law named after him, Goodhart's Law, which has been frequently used with reference to monetary policy and the attempts at monetary targeting. He's worked in academia, in government, and at the Bank of England, notably in the context of today's discussion as an advisor on monetary policy from 1969 down to 1980. Charles is also an emeritus professor at the London School of Economics. Charles.
I first met John in 1983, and I was delighted to do so. I'd been sent out by the Bank of England because Hong Kong was suffering from a financial panic at the outset of the fears about what might happen after Hong Kong was handed back to China. And there wasn't a proper structure for the monetary system, and everyone was panicking. And when I went out, the best policy proposal had been set out by John in the Asian Monetary Monitor, which was to establish a currency board linked to the US dollar. And I and my colleague from the Treasury were delighted to support that, which needed a bit of support because John had actually criticised the powers that be, particularly the Chief Secretary in Hong Kong, and they didn't much like him. So it needed outsiders to force through a policy which John had initiated. And I'd like actually to start by emphasising one of the things that John said, which was Friedman was above all an empirical economist. I was actually fascinated by John's presentation, because it was more or less an exact reprise of the empirical discussions between Anglo-American and Friedman and Meiselman way back. What was the date? What was it?
AMFM.
Yeah, it was known as the Battle of the Airways, because it was AM versus FM. But it was all about whether there was greater stability in the relationship between the investment and exogenous multiplier and the money to income multiplier, about from there. And what I want to say is that, or start off by saying, is that that sort of decade, the 1960s, was a splendid period for empirical economics. It was the start of the computer age, and it was also the start of the period when we were getting, in most developed countries, much better data, national income data. It was about then that we were beginning to get quarterly data in the UK. And we were able to apply our sort of theories to the data using computers to a far greater extent than had ever been possible before. And it was a time when actually we did, many of us think, fools that we were, that we might be able to transform macroeconomics into a real empirical science in which we could use regularities in order to forecast the future and all of that. And when I was waking up this morning, I wondered how many people in this room know anything about the name of Owen Megan?
Yes.
Hooray! One. I thought there might be one. Owen was our more or less equivalent of the America's Larry Klein. And Owen developed within the Treasury the first computable, full coherent model of the economy, which the Treasury then used for forecasting. And whether you were a monetarist or a Keynesian, actually the 1960s were an age of great hope that macroeconomics could develop in a way that we could manage and control the economy to a far greater extent than would ever be possible before. It was followed, of course, by the disasters of the 1970s. And I don't think that many people now realize, most of you are too young, the 1970s actually was a nastier decade than the decade since the great financial crisis. Unemployment was higher, inflation was vastly higher, frequently it reached into double figures. At one point it went up to 25% per annum in this country. And the rate of growth, although it was a bit faster than it had been in the final decade, it was not all that wonderful. So the 70s, and in many ways the 60s followed by the 70s is rather equivalent to the period of the 90s and the noughties, where again we thought we'd got macroeconomics really relatively out of control. We dealt with boom and bust, only to come up to the disaster of the GFC and the subsequent decade. I was asked to talk about Friedman and the IMF. Friedman and the empirical revolution, the great improvement in empirical macroeconomics, fits into that. The IMF, in a sense, doesn't. Because the IMF had been using the Western Hemisphere model. Now, what that meant was that the fund during the period in the early 1960s and late 1950s was asked to provide support to countries that ran into balance of payments and other difficulties, mostly in South America. And that's why it's called Western Hemisphere. And in those Latin American countries, I can't actually now remember which ones they were, but I imagine Argentina was almost certainly one of them. Actually, you didn't have that kind of data availability, nor did they have much in the way of computers. And so when the fund went into these countries, how could they bring about policies which would restore balance within their community, rectify the balance of payments, and get the fund paid? And the answer effectively was that the only place where you had reliable data, pretty much, was the central bank. And so what the Western Hemisphere model, developed by Jacques Kodak, represented was that you controlled the domestic counterpart, or the domestic element, within the central bank balance sheet. So the central bank was only allowed to expand domestic credit up to a particular point, and what you did under the Western Hemisphere model was you estimated what the rate of growth of nominal income you expected wanted to get over future years. You worked out what the equivalent of the money supply, what the equivalent growth of the monetary base was, and you then applied the domestic credit to try and ensure that in order to reach that monetary base, you had to have an inflow, an external inflow through the exchange rate into the reserves of the central bank to achieve that particular outcome. And of course the UK got into severe problems because the devaluation in 1967 didn't be seen working. We had to call the fund in 1968. And the fund's immediate response was to say, well, let us use the same basis DCE as we had before, and let us have conditionality. Now, this was complicated for several reasons. The first one was attaching conditionality to the UK was in some ways a slur, or potentially a slur, on the reputation of the UK as able to pay its way and pay the fund back. And secondly, the UK, for reasons that Duncan and I set out, relied on raw money and on preferred Bank of England method of analysis of the determinants of raw money was through the credit counterparts approach, which within the UK I would give the primary credit for the responsibility for developing that to Andrew Bain. And anyhow, we did not want to adopt monetary-based control. Incidentally, Michael presentation. He talked about monetarism as inflation is a monetary phenomenon. There are long and variable lags. If you could achieve it, we'd like to have steady growth of the money supply. There was absolutely nothing in that that I, the Bank of England, wouldn't have signed up to totally. In that sense, we were all monetarists. The differences were primarily on the implementation side. We did not believe, particularly with a very large national debt, the problem of trying to roll over the national debt, rightly or wrongly, that we could, within the UK financial system, adopt monetary-based control. The arguments were really on implementation of proposals rather than on sort of objectives. And in terms of objectives, in a sense, we were all monetarists. It was the implementation where the differences are. Now, within the IMF, the compromise that was eventually achieved, and you can go over this, the details are all in the archives and the data, was to construct DCE on the basis of the credit counterparts. And in terms of conditionality, we had the typical political fudge. And why actually the public and the press bought this, I've never ever understood. But the fudge was that these papers were provided, and I wrote one of them, that actually suggested that this concept of DCE had been discovered by and applied by politicians in the UK, as if it was our policy. And it was sort of, it wasn't, in no sense, our policy. It was imposed by the fund. They had to have some form of conditionality, and this was one that was actually agreed and decided upon. But to a very large extent, the politicians of the day managed to get away with it, and to an extent also in 1976. I think that you will find, and I'd like somebody actually to do this exercise, and it's very easy to do. And you can do this almost sort of in a second's time. I'll just go through the main papers of the day, FT and Peter J's Times, and so on, and actually count the number of times when DCE, or domestic credit, is actually mentioned in the papers. I think that you will find that DCE, it was mentioned, was 0 before 1968, spiked in 68, 69, went back to virtually 0 after we got out of the funds clause, and then was virtually 0 again until 1976 when the fund came back again. In other words, DCE, the concentration on DCE was purely a factor that we needed to borrow from them. They had the money, and they imposed this conditionality. And when the fund left, DCE departed with it. So that I think that the idea that the IMF played any role in changing thinking, in changing the background of ideas in the UK, I was just sure they had the power, and they, for a time, they were able, because they had the power to impose what they wanted, up to a point of the compromise that we achieved. Now, Milton Friedman didn't have that kind of power to affect the way that UK monetary policy was actually undertaken. And he never had the ability to undertake direct implementation. But he was, as John was saying, a really quite outstanding empirical economist. The Monetary History of the United States is one of the greatest books, if not the greatest book, on monetary economics and monetary history that's ever been written. And the extent and range of Milton Friedman's sort of influences. And yes, of course, many other people were involved in sort of the division between real and nominal interest rates, long and variable lags, permanent and transitory. And it is perfectly possible that if Milton had never lived, a lot of it would have come about anyhow. One just can't you can't measure that kind of influence. But he did have a really major influence, I think, on the way that we think. The indirect approach. inflation is a monetary phenomenon. I don't think there's hardly anyone, I don't know if there's anyone in this world who would actually disbelieve that nowadays. And that was not what people thought beforehand. It wasn't what they thought. In that sense, I think that he had a pervasive influence on the structure of ideas, but not on the actual implementation of policy. And there's a difference between direct influence and indirect influence. And I really ended up in my paper by focusing on two aspects. The first aspect is the vertical Phillips curve, where he and Phelps sort of share the responsibility for introducing it. Yes, there was an understanding that in the long run, as expectations changed, the Phillips curve would be steeper than the short run, and that predated Newton. Again, no doubt about it. But I was actually working in the Department of Economic Affairs in the period 65 to 67, and then I went into the bank in 68, 65, 66. And it is my very strong impression that at that time, people did think that there was a downward sloping Phillips curve, and it was thought to be the objective of policy to try to hit the best point on that downward sloping Phillips curve, which reflected what we as officials thought to be masters' political preferences. And that inevitably was a political decision. The division between the best attainable point on that slope was a clearly political decision. Once you get a vertical Phillips curve in the medium and long term, then it means that in that same medium and long term, the best that you can achieve is to have a stable, low inflation rate. Moreover, high inflation leads to the use of resources to try and avoid the inevitable costs from various rigidities, so that actually the best that you can even do for growth is to maintain a low and stable inflation rate. And that is what monetary policy should be able to do. And that, together with the, my memory is going, Margaret Preston, the time inconsistency argument, is the foundation of central bank independence. If you didn't have a vertical Phillips curve, the choice of the trade-off must be political. If you've got a vertical Phillips curve and you have time inconsistency, the argument for a central bank independence is extremely strong, if not overwhelming. So in that sense, I actually regard Milton in some ways as the progenitor and in some part, the leader of the theoretical analytical viewpoint that brought about central bank independence. The final issue, of course, is, and this was, of course, where we had the huge fights at the beginning of the 1980s, was over the mechanism of how you implement a monetary target, or monetary base control. And here, I'm Tony in the audience, and Bank of England, and virtually all of the City of London, thought that monetary base control was inconsistent with the way that our financial system would work. It would cause great problems in handling the national debt. It would lead to massive rate variations in interest rates. It would be unstable. It would lead potentially to financial disaster, and we didn't want any of it. I was actually very surprised that the bank allowed the sort of the warning shot that Michael Foote, Tony and I introduced about why monetary base control was not a good idea. It was intended to be a warning shot across the bars, if I can mix my metaphors, of an incoming Conservative government not to try to keep monetary base control. And I do remember the discussions. It was splendid to have a discussion about monetary base control at Church Hall, which was where I was in London, where it was actually introduced. And I'm glad to say that actually we won that. I haven't been doing my But anyhow, and I was glad we won that. And I think monetary-based control would have been a disaster. And the relationship between monetary base and the broader monetary aggregates has, as you all know, recently come unstuck. And the whole sort of idea of the money multiplier related from the monetary base to broad money has suffered, I think, terminal disaster. So my conclusions are that Milton Friedman had very little direct influence on the specific policy issues, but as the above, his influence in shifting the underlying framework of macroeconomic analysis in the UK, as elsewhere, was enduring, pervasive, and tremendous. As Keynes said, what really drives policy in the economic sphere is ideas. And Milton Friedman, I think, had a wonderful range of ideas which changed the way that we all think. And that's what's really important.